Warning, Gory Storytime is a horror movie review show with a 13-year-old host. So, if you are not amused by the idea of a child describing R-rated graphic scenes of violence and death, or do not want movies from the 70s, 80s, and 90s spoiled, this may not be the show for you. Parental guidance is suggested.
Yeah, so guide your parents out of the room so we can have some fun. Welcome to Gory Storytime. I'm your host, the skinny one.
And I'm his co-host, the fat one, otherwise known as Jason and Craig.
Today we're reviewing Sematary.
And like always, let's start with the trailer and then we'll get into some of the details.
Cat.
Daddy, is church all right?
Why, Judd? I have my reasons.
I dreamed he got hit by a car and you and Mr. Crandall buried him in the pet cemetery.
What did we do tonight, Judd?
What we did, Lois, was a secret.
May the Lord bless you and keep you.
Has anyone ever buried a person up there?
May the Lord make his face to shine upon you.
You're thinking thoughts best not thought of.
Daddy's gonna do something really bad.
You're thinking of putting him up there. Don't deny the thought hadn't crossed your mind.
Come back to me, Gage. Come back to us.
Paramount Pictures presents Stephen King's all-time best-selling tale of horror. Pet Sematary.
Well, all right. So let's talk about some
Facts.
interesting behind-the-scenes and little-known facts. Some maybe more known.
Rachel, in the movie Rachel Creed, when she got out of the semi on the highway, or semi on her way home, she got out and the number on the truck said 666.
Which, by the way, Stephen King uses in a few of his movies, and it's usually right before something horrible happens. So if you see 666 in one of his movies,
Expect something horrible.
absolutely. And of course, most people do know this. Stephen King is in a lot of his movies, not all of them, you know, as some bit part, kind of like Alfred Hitchcock back in the day used to have a shot of him at some point in all of his movies. Stan Lee does that with the Marvel movies now. In this, he played the preacher at Missy's funeral, so that's kind of cool.
There were 7 cats to play church in the movie.
Yep.
7 churches.
Yeah, every one of them was trained to do a different thing.
Like, one was trained to attack, one was trained to just walk.
Yeah, I mean, like anything different that they had to do, they would train the cat to do one thing.
Like,
Stephen King actually got the idea for this novel when his daughter's cat Smucky was killed on a road outside their house. And it was near a pet cemetery that they were shown by an older gentleman who lived, you know, nearby.
yeah.
He obviously added some supernatural elements, but
Oh no, that happened in real life.
anyway.
Pet Sematary was the first written script that he did based on one of his own books.
True. And I think it was like the 25th movie based on one of his books, but it was the first time, you're right.
He wrote it.
I mean, he had written scripts for like Creepshow.
Not one of his books.
Exactly. Creepshow 2 did have an adaptation of, bless you, one of his short, bless you, bless you. You know, sneezes are kind of like earrings. 1 or 2 is okay, but 3 in a row is annoying. Anyway, the neighbor Judd was played by Fred Gwynne. He was the star of The Munsters, the black and white TV show where there was a Frankenstein for a father. That was him, Herman Munster. His wife was a female vampire. His father-in-law was a vampire. Their son was a werewolf. I don't know how a vampire and a
Werewolf.
no, a vampire and a Frankenstein made a werewolf.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, and if you remember in The Munsters, what was their pet's name?
Spot. A dragon.
And what was Fred Gwynne's dog's name when he was younger in this movie?
Spot.
Kind
Dog.
of. I mean, just a coincidence, but kind of funny.
Rachel's sister Zelda was played by a guy for 2 reasons. One, it made her look a lot creepier.
Yep.
And 2, they couldn't find a woman skinny enough to play the part.
Yeah, it was kind of a anorexic kind of guy that they got. Stephen King actually lived 20 miles away from the set where they were shooting this. He would show up randomly to make sure that they were following his script as close as possible. His reason for that was because it was based on something that happened with his daughter.
It was so important.
Yeah, it was important that they follow the way he wrote it.
Most of Stephen King's stories take place in Maine. This is the only one, this is the first one that was shot in Maine.
Miko Hughes, who played Gage, who's on the screen behind us here, he was only 2 years old in Pet Sematary. He also has appeared in Wes Craven's New Nightmare as Heather Langenkamp's son. He was Aaron, the best friend of Michelle Tanner on a full season of Full House. He was in Apollo 13, and he was a kid in the class that Arnold Schwarzenegger taught in Kindergarten Cop. He would be the one with a pretty famous, much repeated line. Do you remember the line I'm talking about?
Yes, he was the one that said to Arnold, boys have penises and girls have vaginas.
And of course, all the other kids laughed at that, and so did everyone watching it pretty much.
A cast of
Miko.
Miko Hughes' head was made, and it was put on a puppet, so he wouldn't have to be there for the scarier scenes.
Yeah, because he was
Like
2 and
pouncing on the dude from the pantry near the end.
yeah. Anything where they thought it would scare the 2-year-old, even when he saw how it was being done, they tried to use the puppet, which was
Yeah,
except for the scene
where he
with
bit Judd's neck
yes, that they
because they used like this
meat and
meat
gel and stuff,
and
that,
then like theatrical blood.
and they had him really bite into that.
Meat.
The director of this movie is Mary Lambert. She was known for directing Madonna videos. She directed Like a Virgin, Material Girl, and Like a Prayer. Yep.
Stephen King loves the Ramones and quoted the Ramones in his book of Pet Sematary, and they, because of that, made a song called Pet Sematary that they played at the end of Pet Sematary during the credits.
Full circle. Yeah, he quoted them. They wrote a song based on the book, and then that song got in the movie. That's kind of interesting. Bruce Campbell, who's better known to horror fans as Ash from the Evil Dead movies, he was actually was the first person that they had approached to play the father, Louis Creed. Yep. Also, Rachel was played by a woman named Denise Crosby, And Denise Crosby later on was on Star Trek Next Generation as Tasha Yar. She was also in 48 Hours and the movie Deep Impact.
And then George Romero of the Night of the Living Dead fame and Tom Savini both turned down directing Pet Sematary.
True. When we were watching it, we did notice a couple of mistakes. Now, in an earlier episode, we referred to mistakes we made as grave mistakes, but I think this could be a regular segment on our show where we find mistakes that are in these movies, and we'll just call that segment Grave Mistakes. And I think we each have one that we wanted to talk about. So, what's something you
When
noticed?
Missy hangs herself, you can notice that it's actually the noose is connected to a harness.
Ooh. Down goes
Not her
Billy.
neck.
At least that one's easier to stand up. If Chucky fell over, it would be a pain. The mistake that I noticed, it's technically not a mistake, but if you really think about it, it doesn't make sense. Gage gets killed by being hit by a tractor trailer.
A semi.
A semi, yeah. But that would destroy a 2-year-old. And he was 2 when he was filming as a 2-year-old, so that's interesting. But it would literally destroy his body. And as you see from the picture, when he comes back to life, there's just a scar on his head. And that's about the amount of damage that you see.
It'd be more like his face.
Yeah, it would, or worse. I think before we bring on our guest star, we should do a couple quick commercials. Today's episode of Gory Storytime is brought to you by rentaplot.com. We know that not everyone's going to need a grave plot forever. What if you don't intend on staying dead? At rentaplot.com, you can rent your site and even headstone by the hour, day, or week. Any damage that's caused by the removal of bodies is the responsibility of the renter. And if you enter Gory Story into the box, you get a discount code for 10% savings. And it's also brought to you by
Creed kites. You just can't feel run down when you go fly a kite. A Creed kite by Gage Co. Toys.
All right. Well, this is the first time we've done this, but we have another gentleman who's going to join us to review this. So, Austin, would you like to come over here so we can talk to you about this movie? This would be my stepson, Austin Heck. Would you like to say hello?
Hi.
So, we're talking about the movie Pet Sematary, and you watched that too. So, we wanted to hear, some of the things you think. So, we're going to talk about the movie now, like what happens in it. So, what's some stuff that you remember in the movie that happened?
At the beginning, when they just moved in, Jug, was it
Judd.
his name?
Judd. Yep.
He was the kid. He was gonna go on the road, and the kid ran, and the Jug.
Judd.
Judd.
It's all right.
He ran it and got the kid.
Yep.
At the beginning.
When he almost got hit. That's right. And that comes back sort of later on, huh?
Yeah,
But
then the kid did get hit.
Yeah. But and then
The dad
basically,
was the only one that was running.
well, we'll talk about that in just a minute, because what I wanted to do is talk about how the story basically goes. So basically, the first thing that happens is the neighbor shows them a pet cemetery, a regular pet cemetery.
And then later on, he shows them what the other pet cemetery.
He shows
Yeah.
the father.
He shows the father, right? He doesn't show the rest of them, though, huh? He probably shouldn't have
Indian.
showed the father, because some bad stuff happens,
Indian burial ground from World War
Yeah.
II.
which is used in a lot of movies, and it could have sounded corny or whatever, but the way they did it, it actually worked pretty well. But, they used the ancient Indian burial ground in plenty of movies. Poltergeist, for example, they built the houses that they were on one, and it was the ghosts of the dead that, were coming back to haunt. But that's probably going to be reviewed at another time on this show.
I didn't even know that.
Oh, absolutely. But you know, so then the daughter's cat gets hit, and that's when Judd shows this ancient grounds. And what happens when you bury something there?
It will come back alive.
Yep, absolutely
And
comes.
that's super close when the guy got scratched on the face.
Mm-hmm.
At the next one.
Of course, when the cat comes back, was he nice, would you say?
No.
Not at all, huh?
Yeah, because first he buried
The cat?
the cat,
And then
the kid,
he had to bury his son there.
and then his
didn't have
the
to.
mom.
Yes.
He
Well,
buried
he
the
didn't
mom
have to
there.
bury his son there.
Is
He
there
could've been
anything-
smart, didn't.
Is there anything else in the movie, Jay, that you would like to talk about before we get into our favorite scenes and stuff?
No, not really.
We pretty much covered the basic
Yeah.
story. One thing that I didn't mention was we said that Stephen King based this on what happened with his real daughter's cat. Some of the lines of the daughter were actually actual things that his daughter had said. You know, why does God want my cat? It's not God's cat, it's my cat. God can get his own cat. That actually came from Stephen King's daughter. But on this show, which you've seen when I showed it to you at home, you saw me and Jason's show before, we like to talk about what our favorite scenes are. So we're going to go you, then Jason, then me, and talk about what our favorite scene is. So what was your favorite scene in the movie?
My favorite scene was when the cat threw the cat threw the rat in the tub.
That was pretty scary, because it startles you at first, but then it's funny because it's just a rat.
Yeah, and then he jumped because there was blood in the tub.
Well,
And there's
because
a dead rat on him.
yeah, he jumped probably more because of the rat. I would jump if there was a rat on me. What was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene would have to be. Oh my goodness, I forgot
You forgot your favorite scene.
it. Yes, I forgot it.
Well, if you want to think about it, I'll talk
I'll
about.
do that.
Okay, that's fine. My favorite scene, actually, I'm going to change it from what I had thought of, was probably the scene where Judd is looking for Gage when Gage had come back, and Gage is hiding under the bed and slashes his ankle, his like Achilles tendon.
Yeah.
That was so realistic looking, and I flinch every time. Even though this movie was made in the 80s, you'd think, oh, it's not going to hold up. I flinch every time I see that. I just kind of go, you know what I mean?
Like, ow.
Yeah, I just have that reaction. I think I remember what you had said yours was. Do you
Yes,
remember?
I remember now.
Okay.
At the end, when the wife walks into the house, her face is all pussy. I like this scene only because it's so gross and disturbing.
Oh, yeah, it's
And
dripping all
It's
out of her
just
socket.
oozing out of her eye, and he goes to make out with her.
Well, it is his wife. You can't not make out with your wife just because her eye is missing and there's pus dribbling down her face.
I would it.
I
And
know.
she's dead.
Well,
And
okay,
he's-
there's that.
Yeah, but if he remembered that the kid tried to kill him, shouldn't
He
have
would've
done
been-
it to his wife.
You're absolutely
He
right.
killed him.
Well, see, but he thought he had waited too long to do that with Gage, and bring him back. So he thought maybe if he buried her really quick, that she would come back and be okay. But didn't work out that way, did it? No. All right. So what was the scene you liked the least?
When the kid got hit by the car because he was holding the kite, he dropped it on accident, and he was chasing the kite.
Yep.
And
Judd.
Judd,
It's all right, bud.
he always he he tried to say it the second time.
And the dad ran to save him, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty sad when he got hit. And then the dad screamed, no. And yeah, it was pretty sad at that
Wow.
point. What would you say your least favorite scene
I'm
was?
actually going to change mine from what I said last time. I'm going
Okay.
to say my least favorite scene would have to be when the daughter was screaming at her mother saying, "Oh, Daddy's gonna do something horrible. Daddy's gonna do something horrible," and the mother just didn't believe her.
Yeah, it's like she had this weird psychic connection, but a lot of that was because of Pascal. If you remember Pascal,
I
who was Pascal?
He was the kid that got rushed to the hospital.
Yeah, and
No,
he
Pascal
came back
was
as a.
milk.
He had that big wound on his head, and he came back as a ghost, and he kept trying to help him though, because he
Yeah,
was
he was not a bad ghost.
not at
He was
all.
a good ghost.
And he actually had some funny lines. He helped make the movie a little less scary at parts where he was there, because he was
Yeah,
trying to
when-
help.
Yeah, after she went out of the truck where it said 666, he was in there.
And
Where
he said,
she was sitting.
"Yep," and he said, "All right, I can't help anymore," and drove away with the trucker. But yeah, it was cool
Yeah,
that there was a
then-
ghost that was helping.
And then later on, he was holding open the door.
Oh,
Before
that was at the airport, right?
Yeah.
So that was your least favorite part.
Yeah, I shared mine.
Okay. My least favorite part would have to be at the funeral when, the grandparents who never liked Louis Creed, everyone's mourning and sad, and it's really serious funeral scene, which you don't see a lot of dramatic acting like in a lot of horror movies. They played it like a drama as far as the heart-wrenching, when the
Yeah.
kid died in the funeral.
Yeah, like when the grandpa punched the guy in the
That's
face.
what I was
and
gonna
it
say.
knocked over the crate.
Yeah, the crate.
I don't know what it's called.
It's casket is basically what they call it. But yeah, that was what I was going to say. My least favorite thing was because he took out how sad he was about his grandson dying by blaming his son-in-law, but his daughter didn't save Gage either. You know what I mean? So it kind of
Because he didn't see it. They didn't see it.
Yeah.
Only he did.
Yeah, exactly. But it was sad that, they had that big fight right there in the middle of that.
Yeah, like if he didn't trip, he would have got him in time.
Absolutely. So that would.
Maybe it was a rock.
One thing we didn't mention was we like to do the death toll in these.
I had that one.
Do you
It
remember?
was 6 people and 1 cat.
Yep. 6 people died and 1 cat died. Of course, he came back and then died again, but we didn't count it the second time. Same with Gage. We didn't count him twice.
They were dead.
Yeah.
And the mom.
Yep, we counted her. We counted every time someone died in
But
this,
she didn't.
Pascal included.
The
It's all right.
mom didn't actually die the second time.
Well, we don't know because it went black and you only think you know what happens, but it doesn't really show.
Kind of like it. Also
Yeah,
one of his
maybe-
movies. It
maybe-
would go black and not show you what actually happens.
Maybe the dad didn't die, but maybe
Maybe.
We'll never know because we didn't see it. They
Maybe
did
the
make
next
part.
movie.
Well, they made part 2, but it doesn't have the same family in it. So, but they talk about the Creeds in it. It's not a good movie, trust me.
I
But-
still want to see it.
So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna rate the movie on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being you pretty much hated it. 10 being it's the best movie ever. So what would you say your rating for this movie is?
9.
A 9 out of 10?
Yeah.
I mean,
It was-
the acting is good.
Yes.
There's movies that are newer than that don't hold up as good as this
No.
movie. So that's a pretty good rating. What would you say?
9.
You're agreeing with 9? So you really liked it? It is a really good movie. And did it scare
but-
you though?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple parts that made you jump.
Like I flinched when the rat got through in the tub.
Yeah, I think this will be the first time that you and I had the same number, but I'm going to give this a rating of a 9 out of 10 myself.
all three of us
Mainly
got
because of the fact that the actors did a really good job of making you believe that this was real, even with the, you know,
Kid getting hit by the semi.
well, I'm saying even with the supernatural aspect of this movie, they definitely did a good job of making it, you know, they played it like it was real. You could get sucked into the emotion of when the fight happened at the funeral or how sad the girl was her cat died. Like, it was all so realistic.
I have something to say.
What?
I'm
No, it's all right.
trying to think.
Well, if you think of it, let us know. But so I would say pretty much we've done all the
This.
what?
Are we gonna do that yet?
No, oh, they already played the trailer. That was before we had you come over here. It's all
I
right.
didn't see it.
It's all right. You'll get to watch it when it's on when this airs on TV.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank our special guest Austin Heck for coming in, and I think we should wrap it up. Yeah. So,
This was Gory Story Time, and sweet dreams.
sweet dreams.
Hope you have a good life.